Good morning, everyone. Listen, guys, hasn't 2026 started with absolute furiosity and rage? So we're going to be talking today about the United States takeover of Venezuela, British airstrikes on Syria, World War III and World War IV. Now, before I get into this, because I know a lot of people will be considering this now. A long time ago, I was talking about how I feel there's going to be a whole new structuring of the world, and it kind of goes like an who was it? Was it Huxley? Not Huxley. George Orwell. Sorry, George Orwell in his book 1984. What he talks about is he talks about the world split up into two groups, Oceania and Eurasia, and they are at a constant state of war. Nobody knows what the war was started over. Nobody knows when it's going to end. All they know is that they have to keep building for the war effort. And that does look like we're heading towards that right now. And I talked about this before, where, the United States takes control of Venezuela, Mexico, Canada, Greenland, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand. I'm going to throw in Israel, and I'm going to throw in Japan and Taiwan as well on those. Obviously, if the United States takes control of the United Kingdom, that gives the United States control of Antarctica and all that beautiful oil that's in Antarctica. So what I believe we're seeing right now is the very first stages of an absolute United States takeover. So last night, in fact, let me share this article from the BBC. Last night, Donald Trump in his press conference, he came out and he said that, I'll read you exactly what he said. That's not what he said. Maduro's in custody, at New York Detention Center, as Trump says the United States will run Venezuela. Can you imagine that, guys? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine how envious, Vladimir Putin is? How, Vladimir Putin's special military operation was to take control of Ukraine, right? Essentially. And they're in year 12 now? The United States just did it in less than 1 day. Literally 1 day they did it. Job done. Right, where's the thing I was talking about? Here we are. Oh God, hang on. Right, the news heading, I can't find it. Here we are. This is it. So Trump's, I'm just going to read this bit, guys. I'm going to read it all, and then I'm going to give context, because I do think Greenland, Canada, Mexico, Panama, all those places are going to be under control of the United States very soon. Trump said on Saturday that the US was going to run the country until such time we can do a safe and proper judicious transition. It's unclear exactly how the US plans to run Venezuela or who will be involved, but Trump said it will be a group effort. He added that Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been talking to Delcy Rodriguez, Venezuela's vice president, who has since been named as the interim president by the Venezuelan Supreme Court. Trump said she had expressed willingness to do whatever the US asks. Can you guys see how you get peace by superior force? Can you guys see that? Everything's underwritten by violence. Right. Do as you're told or bad stuff's going to happen. Okay. Do as you're told, or we'll take you to court, and it's going to be a lengthy process, and you may or may not get found guilty, and you're going to get a shit ton of money. And if you get found innocent, do you see the difference? Literally, do you see the difference here? Rodriguez later appeared on state television and demanded Maduro's release, saying he was the only president. Trump also said he had not spoken to Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Machado, who he characterized as having neither the support nor respect within Venezuela to become its leader. Machado had earlier called for Edmundo Gonzalez to assume power. She had rallied support for Gonzalez in the 2024 election, and when vote tallies were released by her party, suggested he won by a landslide. So I just want to bring this. So this is obviously on the macro, right? This is the huge stuff that's happening. If you bring this down to the micro, literally, if you bring this down to the micro, if you are strong with people, they behave, right? If you're strong with people, they behave. If you're weak with people and you flim-flammer and, you flim-flammer and you don't, you let people play about with you, they will play about with you. So this guy, Maduro, allegedly, he said some bad things about Trump. He's been playing with the Iranians. He's been playing with the Russians. He's been playing with flirting with the Chinese. It turns out if you go in strong and you go in hard and you teach people a lesson and you impose your will, they fall in line very quickly. So it does look like we've got that United States takeover, and it does look like it's happening. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking about this for a while. I've been saying the United States wants Britain, and I welcome that. Because if they take control of Britain, they take control of Antarctica. If they take control of Antarctica, they take control of the world's only untapped natural resources. Right, let me jump over because there's been airstrikes there's been British and French airstrikes in Syria overnight. I'll throw this article up and then I'll close it down and I'll just read it. British and French aircraft attack underground Islamic State weapons store in Syria. That's what I'm going to be reading on now, guys, okay? So, again, this one caught me off guard. It really did. This one caught me off guard because I didn't think that there would be British aircraft attacking, doing any airstrikes in the Middle East. Absolutely zero. So, I'm curious as to what this actually is. British and French aircraft have carried out a joint strike operation on an underground. It doesn't say operation at all. I'm adding words to this. I'm adding words. I do this all the time. British and French aircraft have carried out a joint strike on an underground. It should have operation. A joint strike on an underground facility in Syria that had been occupied by Islamic State. The UK Minister of Defence had said. Guided bombs were used to target the access tunnels to the site in the mountainous region near the ancient city of Palmyra. I think that's right, Palmyra, in the center of the country on Saturday evening. So last night, these airstrikes went in. Initial indications are that the targets were engaged successfully. The ministry said that in a statement. Typhoon Foxtrot Golf Romeo 4 combat jets were used to bomb the targets, supported by a Voyager refueling tank. So so I can only assume they came from RAF Akateria, which is on the southern tip of Cyprus. They may not have, but I think they will have. The facility had probably, we don't know, probably been used to store weapons and explosives, and the surrounding area was devoid of civilians, the Ministry of Defence said. Defence Secretary John Healey said the UK was determined to stand shoulder to shoulder with our allies and stamp out any resurgence of Islamic State. He thanked the members of the armed forces involved on the operation to eliminate dangerous terrorists who have threatened our way of life. Western aircraft have been conducting patrols to stop the resurgence of the Islamic group that ruled parts of Syria until 2019. Now, I've done a lot of this work, like on the ground, this work, and I'm not convinced that airstrikes can. You can't confirm this with airstrikes. You really do need boots on the ground. Yes, of course, you can. You can cause a lot of trouble. You can cause a lot of damage, and of course, you can destroy these facilities. But without boots on the ground to actually go in there, confirm it, blow up any remnants, and eliminate any, eliminate any threats. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the, nobody can be sure of the outcome. But you know what? If you're going to get a 70% chance, take that 70% chance. If you need a 100% chance, you really do need to send the boots. You need to send boots on the ground. Also, the final thing I'm going to be talking about this morning is Keir Starmer. Yes, our illustrious leader, ladies and gentlemen. I've been saying this for such a long time. Keir Starmer is saying, I'll be the Prime Minister this time next year. And he will. Keir Starmer will be the next Prime Minister. Sorry, he may or may not be the next Prime Minister, but Keir Starmer will be the Prime Minister. He will be the leader of the Labour Party going into the next general election. So Keir Starmer has dismissed any concerns about his leadership and said he will still be Prime Minister this time next year. In an exclusive interview to the BBC on Sunday, Laura Kussenberg, I think that word is Laura Kussenberg, the Prime Minister said he believes forthcoming elections in Scotland, Wales and England in May are not a referendum on his government. They kind of are. His comments come after a difficult 2025 for Keir Starmer, who has been battling slowing economic growth, poor poll ratings and speculations he could face a leadership challenge. In a recent New Year's Day message, the Prime Minister promised to defeat the declining division offered by others and insisted that 2026 will see people feel positive change in their lives. I don't know, guys. Do we believe him? Do we believe Keir Starmer that we're all going to start to see positive change in our lives? Listen, the only positive change I'm seeing right now is coming from the United States. So that's what we're talking about this morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will go back to those articles. I'll be focusing on what's happening in the United States takeover of the world. That's what's coming, the United States takeover of the world. Four Paws is saying it's snowing in North Wales. Daniel Payne is saying people all over are celebrating. What are they? Are they celebrating me? Are people celebrating me? Is everybody celebrating me because the United States are coming to take over? Daniel Payne is saying Trump is such a badass. He is. Trump is such a badass. Look, I'm not taking anything away from, you know what? I think you need two things, right? You need two things. You need the military to back up the rhetoric. You do. You need the military to back that rhetoric up. So without the military, without that military that Trump could call, Trump wouldn't be able to do that, right? That's the reality. Equally, without somebody in charge who's willing to let the military do their job, they wouldn't be able to do it. So you do need both of those things, right? Raven, what happens in 3 years when Trump's time up? To be honest, if you think he will win. Okay, so the United States, in their constitution, nobody can run for office more than 2 times. That's the reality. Whether that's 2 times here and 2 times there, it doesn't really matter. What I think could happen is Donald Trump could run as the vice president. Okay, so what could happen, and there's nothing in the Constitution to stop this. So Donald Trump could run as the vice president in the next election. So, for example, in 3 years, when the next US election is, Donald Trump could say, right, I'm stepping down. JD Vance is going to run as president, and I'm going to run as the vice president. And there's nothing to stop that. Absolutely nothing to stop that. And then they could win the election, and then JD Vance could say, do you know what? The day of inauguration, JD Vance could say, do you know what? I'm going to resign. For personal reasons, I'm going to resign. Vice president, step up. Because there will be nothing in the Constitution to stop that. So when people say that Trump can't be the president again, he absolutely can. He absolutely can. There's ways to make that happen. AJ says he's the same. Breaking news, UK and France attack Islamic State in Syria. Yeah, we just spoke about that. We just spoke about the, airstrikes gone into UK jets involved in airstrikes in the Middle East. Again, I don't know why. I'm a little bit confused as to why this has happened. I didn't see this happening. If anywhere is going to get airstrikes, it should be predominantly from the United States and the Middle East, because we have a huge Muslim community in the United Kingdom. We have a huge Syrian community in the United Kingdom, and I welcome them all. Everybody's equal in my eyes. And what happens is when you start bombing these places, you get these images come back and people don't like it. And then you get protests on the street. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I didn't see that one coming. Templar Marty say morning. Yes, I know. I was going to do this later, but I've got to take the girls to their nanan at 11:30. So it wouldn't have worked. Let me jump down. There's lots of comments, guys. Let me jump down. Give me a second. Rod Panhard is saying it's too early to tell if the US has won yet or not. Oil refineries might start going up in smoke soon. They viewed the Syrian operation as a success initially and all starting to fall apart now. You know what? I think you're right, Rod. It is too early to tell. What I would say is, you know, what I would say is it looks like it was, I mean, look, the Russians, Vladimir Putin, I mean, can you imagine how annoyed Vladimir Putin is right now that Donald Trump did his special military operation and it took him less than a day to take control of Venezuela? I think this way of doing it, using special forces, like, can you imagine the next person, if somebody in Venezuela gives opposition, like the next person in Venezuela to give opposition, the United States just do exactly the same again and take that person. And they just say, look, you guys keep messing about, we'll just keep taking you. Because that's what you can do. When you've got that sort of firepower, you can do that. That country will fall in line very soon. Two up, two down. He's saying he ignored Starmer. Yeah. So Keir Starmer came on. He did a news out. He did like a news briefing or whatever, and he said the United States did not tell us. I'm like, yeah, I know the United States are not going to tell us because we'll definitely leak it. We will definitely leak it. I mean, if Jeremy Corbyn had got a whiff of that, he'd be straight out there. Jeremy Corbyn would be straight out there. Darren is saying in February there will be February or March. I think you hit the wrong button on your keys. I think you didn't hit shift when you did the keys. February and March there will be a power take in Labour. Starmer will fall. I don't think so, guys. I don't think he's going. I really don't. I don't think he's going. It's snowing in Cornwall as well. Snowing in Cornwall. Delta Force doing what it does best. Yeah, it was a fantastic operation. Trump for Prime Minister of the UK 2029. There's more to Operation Southern Spear than we are being told. Everything went smoothly. What are we talking about? Okay. There's more to Operation Southern Spear than we're being told. Everything went smoothly. Okay. Let me just jump down. Right. There's a lot of comments. Do I support Sharia law? Is that me? No, of course I don't support Sharia law. Like, who does? Does anybody? Honestly, like, who in there? Like, okay. There's a few bits of Sharia law. No, actually, there's nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay. The thing with Sharia law, guys, right? If anybody, for me, this is what does it every time for me, right? If people say they support Sharia law, that means they support stoning people, well, women predominantly. I think it is women. I think it's only women who can get stoned to death. If people support Sharia law, that means they support their mums, their sisters, whoever, women in their family. If they do certain crimes, they get to be, they get buried in a hole and people throw stones at them until they pass to the other world. So no, I don't support Sharia law. Roy saying Trump is doing great work. The media is lying by omitting a lot of the historical facts. I don't know what that is. Right, let me jump down. Rod is saying Putin's not annoyed. 80% of Venezuelan oil went to China. Russia is now going to make up the shortfall. It's only cementing Russia and China's relationship. No, what I mean is annoyed by the competency of the U.S. military. I mean, Donald Trump's special military operation was a very special military operation. It lasted a couple of hours, and they took control of the country. Like, Putin is what, 8? No, sorry, he's not even 8. He's like 12 years in now. Putin's 12 years in. Putin's 12 years in, and he still not took control. James is saying morning and all. Right, let me jump down. So by the third day of the new year, Venezuela captured, Iran riots on the streets. It's like someone flicked a switch. It is, and we've not even mentioned the Syrian airstrikes that went in last night. Lisa Claydon is saying, "Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Lisa." Right, guys. There's quite a lot of comments on here. I'm sorry if I don't get everyone's. All right. Okay. No. Okay. Right. Listen. I have to be careful what I say on this live stream. Listen. I get a lot of videos. I get a lot of videos taken down and demonetized for my diverse opinions. So I'm just going woke now. I'm just saying I'm woke to everyone. I'm so woke. But I think Roy, you understand. Roy, you may understand. Roy, you may understand the subtext. No, I don't support that. Okay, so yeah, Roy, I believe is this the first time you're on the channel? Right. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back on track. I'm going off on a side quest. The United States takeover is here. Venezuela is now under United States control. This happened It was a fantastic operation. And I don't think people, give the military as much credit give the credit that's due for this. I mean, when I saw those CH-47s going over, I'm not going to lie, guys, I was very jealous. I was jealous and envious. And everybody on the group chat who's no longer in the military are absolutely gutted. I feel like I should have been on that operation. I've done lots of operations, certainly not of that intensity, but lots of operations where you're flying in on the back of a CH-47. You've got your air support, hosing targets down, protecting you as you go in. You land, you get the bad guy, you get him back on the helicopter, you get out of there. Those guys that did that operation, they won't ever talk about that, and you'll never know they are. And it always fascinates me that these things that the military pull off, like if you did that job in the civilian world, you would be set for life. You would be absolutely set for life. There would be talk shows. They'd be turned into a movie. All those people would be CEOs of their company, and they will be financially set for the rest of their lives. For those Delta Force guys, they will have got back on that helicopter. They will have got back on that ship, or however they got back, and they'll have gone home. They'll have gone to see their families. They will wake up the next morning, and they will be walking. They'll be walking in Walmart. They'll be buying their things in their local stores, and nobody will know who they are. And I don't know. I feel they need to have more credit and more recognition for the things that they do. Anyway, right. Let's just let me just update this and see if there's been any more updates. Give me a second. No. So when I talk about this, I think that the world is being restructured. What we're watching now, it really is a restructuring of the world as we know it. And it's like we're going to have like a new, I don't know, maybe like a new, I don't know. Can anybody think of the words like a new world order of administration? A new world administration. Would that make sense? Why don't we just call it a new world order? That makes it easier. It's a bit catchy, that, right? So this is what I think is going to happen. The United States are going to take control of, they've already taken control of Venezuela, right? They're going to take control of Greenland. I'm not sure about Canada. They may or may not take control of Canada. They're already pretty much in control of Canada because Canada doesn't really have their own military, and the United States props them up massively. So as a buffer zone to protect the United States proper, below that Canadian border, you would have to have, if the Russians basically decide to come over the top, over the Arctic, or through Alaska. they're going to have to go through Canada. Now, if Canada's part of the United States, it may or may not change things. But, you know, with Canada, I can see the utility in leaving it as Canada. I can also see the utility in keeping that as changing that to the United States. Also, the United States is going to take over United Kingdom. Absolutely, guys. Look, when I said this and I started talking about this maybe 2 years ago, I said, listen, guys, I'm seeing direction of travel now that the United States is going to take over the UK. I said, I'm genuinely seeing that. And those people saying, oh, no, that's never going to happen. We'll never. I'm like, right, okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. How does that feel now? How does that feel now? And for, you know, there's a lot of people saying, why would the United States want the United Kingdom? Well, oil. First of all, we have a ton of oil in the North Sea. We do, like tons of oil in the North Sea. For woke reasons, we just don't get it. What we do, we let the Norwegians get it. We let the Norwegians process it. Then we pay them and let them profit. So we just pay more for our own oil. Can you imagine how absurd that is? It's kind of like the housing crisis, but on absolute steroids. So the Norwegians are in the North Sea drilling for oil, our oil. They take that oil, they process it, they sell it back to us as petrol, and we pay, and they profit from that. What should be happening is we should be taking that oil, we should be processing it, and we should be using it as our country, like as the United Kingdom. That's what should be happening. So we've got a load of oil in the North Sea. Oil as well. We are sitting on a shit ton of oil in the South Atlantic. Not even, yeah, is it the South Atlantic? Yeah, I think it is the South Atlantic. Off the coast of the Falklands and off the coast of Antarctica. And look, regardless what anybody says, and I know I get a lot of pushback when I say this, whoever controls the Falkland Islands controls the whole of Antarctica. That's it. There's no caveat. Oh, but Sean, Antarctica's split to 6, 7, or whatever it is, different international regions. Yeah, I get that. But the region that the United Kingdom controls, because the United Kingdom controls the Falklands, is the little peninsula bit that spurs off. And that's the only place you can get ships. Literally, like, good luck getting ships anywhere else. Yes, of course, you can fly stuff in. Yes, over time, you can build that infrastructure. But initially, right now, the easiest place to get goods in and out is that peninsula. And that's what Britain controls. So it's all well and good, people controlling it. I mean, the French did this. The French were really good. Well, really bad, I guess, at doing this. The French, when they were expanding their empire, they took lots of land. They said, right, we're just going to take lots of land. We've got lots of farming we can do. We can do this. We've got all this land we can do. The British, although the British did take a lot of land, the British said, right, you know what? We're not going to overextend that. Because when you've got a lot of land, you've got to look after it, right? You've got to administer it. You've got to secure it. You've got to, you've got to work that land. What the British did is the British said, right, okay, that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to take control of the control points. So we're going to take control of the access points. For example, Gibraltar. Look at like the strategic significance of Gibraltar, right? Whoever controls Gibraltar controls the Mediterranean. That's the reality. There's no denying it. If you control Gibraltar, you control the Mediterranean because you can close. You can close that. You can close access down. So, and it's very easy to administer when you've got one of these small, when you've got a small patch of land that you're controlling access and egress to a country, to a sea, to a region. When you control that access egress, it's a small point. It's a lot easier to administer. It's a lot easier to run. It's a lot easier to secure. And everybody that wants to go to and from their land, they have to pay you a tax because you control the access and egress point, or they have to, or they have to come do your paperwork. They have to register in the United Kingdom. They have to pay UK tax. Unfortunately, this Labour government is doing a very good job at destroying all that. But anyway, right, let's jump back onto this. So Maduro's in custody at New York Detention Center as Trump says the United States will run Venezuela. Oh, hang on. Right, hang on. There's just been an update. Mixed bag of reactions to interim government in Venezuela. Former UK envoy. With dirty curtains. Vanessa Newman. I wonder if she's related to Von Newton. No, sorry. Was it Neumann? I think it was. Anyway. Former Venezuelan opposition envoy to the UK tells. What does that even mean? Former Venezuelan opposition envoy. What kind of a title is that? That's nothing. Former person who knows about Venezuela tells the BBC that there is a lot of confusion in Venezuela today about what is meant by the term interim government. She says the reaction to Trump's attack on the country and the charges later brought against President Maduro have been a mixed bag. Neumann says the image of Maduro on the US Iwo Jima on his way to New York has inspired lots of hope for some Venezuelans. But, she adds, there's also frustration that Trump dissed opposition leader Machado by claiming she is not popular. I think Trump's doing the right thing. When we went into Iraq in 2003, we thought the Iraqis were ready for democracy. They absolutely were not. They were absolutely not ready for democracy. There were votes, there were leadership competitions. They were not ready. You know, the Iraqis were not ready to be democratized. They just weren't ready. And there was a lot of problems from that. So what normally happens when you topple a government, you put in a puppet. You put in somebody that will be, you're going to want to put in somebody that's going to be sympathetic to your causes, right? Or what's the point in putting him there in the first place? So the problems that we had in the Middle East with various, I used to actually live on the same street as Ayad Alawi, who was I think he won the election in maybe, I think he won the election in Iraq in maybe 2011 or 2012. I used to go and have dinner. I used to go and have tea in his house, like where his villa was. We was like, I think we had the next one down or maybe the next one. Anyway, he lived on Al Kindi Street, and so did I. Al Kindi Street, lovely street, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic cakes. They do fantastic cakes on Al Kindi Street in Baghdad. Anyway, totally forgot where I was going with that. Whatever. Neumann tells the BBC she doesn't necessarily believe the new interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, is an improvement. She added that there is a risk that the hardline players could betray her and take her place if she cooperates with Trump. If this happens, Venezuelans are no better off, she says, adding that repression and torture are still on the books for Venezuelans. So I think what will happen here is, with the United States sat off the shores, with the proximity, with the range, and with the legs that the US have, people who are not playing ball, they will just get taken. They will just get taken. And, eventually, when people realize that, peace by super, they need to be good. And again, you could argue whose definition of good, but you know what? When you've got the biggest air force in the world by a factor of 10 and the world's second biggest air force, as in, with the US Navy, you can kind of do what you want, and that's just the reality. So that's what we've been talking about today, guys. It does look like the United States takeover is in full swing. It really does. We've got British airstrikes on Syria, and it's only the 4th of And it's only the 4th of January, 2026. Can you imagine what things are going to be like next week? Right, let me jump up, guys, and get some comments. James is saying, why did we attack Syria? I genuinely don't get it. No, I don't either. Are they a threat to the unity from Syria? I doubt it. I'd be more concerned about the enemy within because they are here, according to ex-MI6 agents. Yeah. So I will totally agree with that. I'll totally agree with that. What I will say as well is I don't see the utility there's plenty of other jets in that region that can strike these targets. So there must have been something UK specific because I'm convinced, and it makes no sense that the United Kingdom get bogged down in the Middle East when we're going to get bogged down very soon in Ukraine. So we don't want a Muslim uprising. Well, I mean, we've already got a Muslim uprising in the United Kingdom. We don't want a bigger or more ferocious Muslim uprising in the United Kingdom because we just won't be able to cope. So I agree with you. I don't know. Footlong is saying Zelensky has congratulated Trump and said, you know what needs to be done. Yeah, look, I think that Zelensky might get taken very soon by US Special Forces. I do. I think that Zelensky, listen, if anyone's got so this corruption scandal in Ukraine, let me see what the news is on it. Let's see if anything's happened on the news. One day ago, Zelensky promotes Ukraine's top spy following scandal. No, there's nothing really come out more about it, I don't think, or if it is, I can't find it. So this corruption scandal that's in Ukraine at the moment, we're not even touching the sides yet with this corruption. I think there's a lot more to come out. I think Zelensky is trying to do damage limitation right now in Ukraine by changing everybody around, and because that's what he's doing. He's getting rid of people and he's changing posts and he's putting new people into positions. So I think if anyone is going to get arrested, it's going to be Zelensky. Can you imagine the United States if and I'm not saying they have, but let's just say that the United States have evidence that Zelensky has been defrauding, embezzling, stealing money from the United States, basically. That would be, they would want to arrest him, right? I mean, they just arrested Maduro. So let's not pretend that they can't arrest world leaders. So the United States would 100% arrest him. And what that would do is do you know what, actually, I think that's quite a smart move. Do you know what, actually, Footlong, I think you're onto something. Okay, I'm just going to play this out in my head, ladies and gentlemen. I'm literally just going to play this out in my head, right? Can you imagine now, all right? Okay, so I'm literally thinking out loud here. So they want boots on the ground, right? I say that's that's a thing. So to get boots on the ground, they have to remove Zelensky, right? Now, how are you going to remove Zelensky? It's going to take a long time. The political process in Ukraine is going to take a long time. They're going to have to be an election. They're going to have to figure out how to have an election. People will resist. If the United States just storm in there and arrest him and take him, first of all, that's going to cement the relationship between Russia and the United States. That means that when these things kick off proper, and the United States go into the Middle East, that means that the Russians are going to be like, yeah, but they got rid of Zelensky for us, so we're not really bothered about that. Also, what that would do is it would cause a vacuum. That vacuum would have to be filled by someone. That someone would then agree to Trump's ceasefire negotiation, right? His 20-point plan. And then that would be able to get those boots on the ground. I'm just thinking out loud. Right. Oh, hang on. Tom is saying Israeli spy channel, and he's put ill. What does that mean? Am I an Israeli spy channel now? I can neither confirm nor deny if I'm in receipt of funding from Mossad. Yeah, Leroy is the biggest Israeli spy that we've got. Leroy is definitely an Israeli spy. We're all Israeli spies. Montgomery is saying it's certainly an exciting start to 2026. Wasn't it wild? Antarctica is like the NK guided tours only for whatever they want you to see. Look, guys, Antarctica, I'd love to go to Antarctica. My friend got a chance to, he actually went down there. He got a chance and he took it. I want to go down to Antarctica, and I do think, and I do believe, and I really do believe this. I believe there's going to be a mass exodus of Western culture to Antarctica. Because as we see this, this takeover of Europe, the takeover of Europe's pretty much done. Where do people go? Like, if you identify as white Christian, where's your homeland? Like, where's the one place you can go, and feel safe? Right, I'm just going to jump down. Gerald of Riviera, do not get me started on Hunter Biden. Okay, so Gerald of Riviera is saying Biden's son was getting paid 400 grand a month as an oil advisor in Ukraine years ago. Most corrupt war since the last one. Okay, so when I used to work in Ukraine, I worked on a project to refurbish some. They're not actually. Okay, so Ukraine doesn't really have that much oil. Ukraine has a ton of gas. The Ukrainians have, like, before the war, Ukraine was, I don't know where they are now. The Ukrainians were the world's 7th largest natural gas producer. So, gas for heating or whatever. Now, the problem with that, well, it's not a problem. Because it's an oligarchy and it's run by, a few large oligarchs, billionaires, there's no incentive for those guys to refurbish old wells. So they're using really old Soviet equipment, and that really old Soviet equipment isn't very efficient, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because if they spend money on refurbishing that equipment, buying new equipment, refurbishing the old wells, they're not going to get any more money back, right? Because they're selling all the gas, and the supply is meeting the demand, right? So there's no incentive for them to refurbish that. Anyway, so up through various channels I knew in Ukraine, we found one of the operators of three gas wells, and we were going to refurbish them. Anyway, enter Biden, enter Hunter Biden. Now, I don't know what happened, and I can only speculate and allege, but I'm told that the the gas wells that we were gonna refurbish, they were that field was allegedly, now this is what I'm told, take this with a pinch of salt for entertainment purposes, I don't want anybody knocking on my door, was bought by the group that went out with that Hunter Biden was with, right? Now, fast forward to the invasion, it all makes perfect sense. It all makes perfect sense that but it's a conspiracy theory. Who knows? Who knows? It's just a conspiracy theory. Slim is saying Antarctica is an icebox. Antarctica is an icebox here. Is it? I've not been there. I don't know. We're told it's an icebox. Look, with modern technology, with the resources that are in Antarctica, we could make that an absolute metropolis. We could make it an absolute metropolis. I'm talking about domed cities. I'm talking about center parks on steroids. I'm talking beaches. I'm talking tropical waterfalls. We could do all that in Antarctica with the resources that are there. Victoria is saying, made alive here. Hello, Victoria Meldrew. Victoria Meldrew. Victor Meldrew. Oh, isn't that guy off One Foot in the Grave? I think it is. Made alive here. I sit on the right. I enjoy watching Galloway. He's already said Zelensky has bought mansions around the world and has at least 2 superboats he never had before the aid. I can genuinely see an operation. I can genuinely see an operation where the United States go in and arrest Zelensky. I can genuinely see that. If Britain wants to get involved, the only way over here is by planes and boats, right? Because, yes, exactly. Ali is saying, I thought Antarctica was closed off to normal civilians like us. So there's something that's going to get either lifted or renegotiated in 2048. It's called the Antarctica Treaty. I think that's getting reevaluated in 2048. In fact, it is getting reevaluated in 2048. Watermelons is saying civilians aren't allowed to go to Antarctica. None of us know what it's like there. For all we know, it's a Men in Black spacecraft. Yeah. You know what? I'll go with that. I'll go aliens. I will go aliens. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the news of the day. The United States takeover is in full force. I've been predicting that the United States is going to take. The United States, I think, will end up controlling. They've got Venezuela. They'll end up controlling Canada, Greenland, the United Kingdom, Antarctica, Australia, New Zealand. I'm going to throw in there Israel. I'm going to throw in there. Who else am I going to throw in there? Taiwan and Japan. That's going to be your Oceania. That's going to be your Oceania, right? If you guys know the 1984 reference. With this war in Ukraine, I'll be honest with you, I do see the way, but I just don't see it happening, if that makes sense. I don't see the way that the Europeans can defeat the Russians. And it just comes down to numbers, guys. It literally just comes down to numbers. Nothing else. Literally, it's a numbers game. For example, right? The United States did a fantastic military operation in Venezuela the other day. If they kept doing that over and over and over and over again, at some point, a helicopter would go down. They would lose one of their guys. Something bad would happen, and they would lose guys. So even when you have the overwhelming tactical superiority, you have the manpower superiority, you have the equipment superiority. Over time, stuff will go wrong. Now the Russians. That's just how they roll. The Russians never meant to have that superiority. They knew that they could. One of the ways that I don't know if you guys know this, but Russian aircraft, I don't know if it's now, Soviet aircraft. So like your, what are they called? What are those attack helicopters called? Hind, is it Mi-17? Is the Hind the Mi-17 or the Mi-9? I don't know. It's basically the Hind attack helicopter, right? So the way the Soviets built their helicopters, it was they knew that they couldn't train their ground crew to refurbish those engines, those parts, those gearboxes, what have you, and those rotors. So what they did is they said, right, these helicopters, as soon as this engine goes in, after 7 years, it all needs rechanging. After 7 years, you change everything. So whether that's done 1,000 hours or whether that's done 0 hours, after 7 years, the whole stuff needs changing. So what the Russians do, what the Soviets do is they work to play on that. They gear themselves up to play on that lowest common denominator, i.e., with conscripts. They know that they're never going to be able to match the United States Air Force. Look, nobody's ever going to match the United States Air Force. It's just not even it's just ridiculous. Like, you don't even want to play that game. They know they're not going to match that. They know that the Russian special forces are never going to be up to the standard of the United States special forces. They know that, right? But what they do have is the manpower supply. So they've learned how to use conscripts and just push them forwards. And they are working. They do work, guys. They do work, those conscripts. Right. Victor is saying, I found your channel just before Christmas when you brought us the Mirror's weather report. And it has got cold, hasn't it? It has got cold. Oh, the November man is saying, do you realize that Russia is going to show Ukraine the Stone Age? Yeah, I kind of get that. It's, yeah. I don't, yeah. Look, I'm not denying that, actually. I'm not denying that. There's no way that there's no way the Ukrainians can win. Absolutely no way the Ukrainians can win. They need more men. All these little weapons and drones, and they need more men. And that's the thing. They need more trained men. They don't have those trained men. And that's the problem. There isn't time to get those trained men. But what I will say is, if NATO, without the United States, can pull their finger out, and I don't think they can, this is so it's very difficult because sometimes I say things that sound contradicting. If NATO minus the United States, so I'm talking about Europe basically, can pull their finger out and make hard decisions like 2 years ago, they can absolutely defeat the Russians in a war. So that can happen, and it should happen, but I don't think it will, because I don't believe that they can. Why do I believe that? Why don't I believe that? Well, there's too many, too many chefs. Too many chefs spoil the broth. I mean, what have we got? Like maybe 30 nations in, maybe 30 NATO nations maybe 30 nations part of NATO. It's just not going to happen, guys. It just really isn't going to happen. So when I say things like, I don't see this as a win for the West in Europe, I don't. It could be. It absolutely could be. And do I want it to be a win? Absolutely. But I'm just being realistic, and I'm just saying that I don't see it. I don't see that. I don't see that happening. There is another presumption that the families of the conscripts would take large deaths and casualties. That happens. That literally happens. That happens. There's a lot of underreporting in. There's a lot of. Did you know that the Russians have a mobile crematorium? Like, for me, let me get this up. Give me a second. Do you know what? I bet this is on X. Give me a second. Russian. Right, I'm going to share some pictures with you guys, and this is absolutely terrifying. If you want to be terrified right now, ladies and gentlemen, trigger warning. If you want to be terrified, continue watching. If you don't want to be terrified, go and watch another channel and then come back to this one in 2 minutes. Right. Look at these bad boys. So, here are the mobile crematoriums that Russia took to Ukraine to burn the bodies of their dead, so they would be classed as missing to prevent their families getting payouts. There was information showing that they were using these since as early as the second month of the invasion. Now, right, okay, so we've got some fire. What else have we got? Can you imagine when that thing turns up? Can you imagine what the morale's like? That's horrific, right? Tell me that, at what point in your military do you think, yeah, do you know what we're going to do to our casualties? We're going to throw them in the back of here. So, so the question was about these, oh God, just look at it, man. Just look at that. And look, what I'm going to say is, I know this, I'm going to ask a question, right? I understand, I know Russian culture. I do. I've spent a lot of time out there. And I'm going to ask a question. How many people do you think have been thrown? Okay, that's not even the question. Do you think anybody has ever been thrown in the back of one of those? That's not quite, you know, guys, where I'm going, right? That's not quite, their heart's not quite stopped. honestly, when I see those things, just like I get like absolute, I get like a shudder. I get an absolute shudder. Right, I'm just gonna jump down. Yes, and it's horrific, is saying Templar at Millie. Right, let me jump up. So Nelson said, I need more men, Hardy, and a pack of cowboys from Utah turned up. I don't know what that means, but I'll take a pack of cowboys from Utah. November Man is saying you can bank on that, and I think that's in response to the question that I was saying. The question just then when I was showing the mobile crematorium. I mean, honestly, like I don't know if any of you guys have served in the military. One of the things that is very sensitive is when one of your friends gets the good news, right? It's bad. It's really bad. I can't imagine throwing somebody in the back of one of these things. But then if that's how they roll, if that's how the conscripts roll, you know, it's just that's how they do war. And you know, you're trying to fight. You know, you're trying to picture what people are doing is especially in the West. We're trying to put Western eyes on these problems, and it's not going to work. Think about it, right? This guy, this field marshal, whatever is, whoever's in charge of the British military, you're going to say it's some sort of like brigadier or general, or he's going to be a high rank, yeah? Because you're not going to give it, you know, maybe you should. You're not going to give it to like a private soldier or an airman or a marine, right? You're going to give it to someone who's going to be in charge of the army, you know, who's going to be in charge of the British forces. You're not going to flick a coin or just like pick someone from the military at random, are you? Again, I could argue that may be a good thing. You're going to choose the most highest ranking senior guy. You're going to choose that guy, and that's what you should do. Absolutely. The problem with that is you're choosing the highest senior ranking guy. Now, because he or she, it should be a he, is the highest ranking senior guy, he spent a lot of time in the British military. Otherwise, you wouldn't get that rank, right? If you're having detachments to, I don't know, if you've spent 3 years in Oman and 2 years in Russia, and then you've had a job doing, you're not going to get that rank. So because he spent all that time in the British military to get that rank, he only knows the British military, and everything he sees, he's comparing it to the British military. And you can't do that because you've got two totally different ideologies. Lewis Ackers is saying Russia's meat grinder is brutal but effective. It is. It's brutal, but it is effective. And this is what people don't understand. People really don't understand. Right, listen, stop. We're not talking about Russia today, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about the breaking news of the day. The United States takeover has started. Venezuela looks like it's, you know, I mean, am I wrong in saying that Venezuela's that? Oh, hang on, there's an update coming. Am I wrong by saying that Venezuela's in control of the United States right now? I don't think I am. I do think more countries are going to fall in line. We've also got British and French aircraft conducted airstrikes on Islamic State weapons supply in Syria. And I've literally just got a new update from the BBC. And again, look, guys, I know I'm getting shot. I know I can see you guys. Oh, Sean's reading from the BBC. If I read from the BBC, I'm not going to get my videos taken down from fake news, and I get it. I totally get it. Do you know what? I'm not even going to. You're right. Actually, let me close that down. Let me get something else. Yeah, I don't want to read the BBC anymore. Where can I do? The Guardian. We can do Sky News. Let's do Sky News. Right. Oh, there's a video. Can I share this? Right. Hang on. I'm going to try and share this. Oh, no, it's terrible. Right. 11 minutes ago, U.S. foreign policy crystal clear in Venezuela strikes, says Patel. U.S. has put together one hell of an armada around Venezuela. The U.K. Shadow Foreign Secretary has said, appearing on Sunday morning with Trevor Phillips, she was asked if the U.S. strikes were justified. The national security strategy was clear, she said. That's America under Trump. America under Trump was going to assert itself when it came to the issue of chronic wrongdoing that's having a big impact on the United States, and it pointed to Latin America in particular. So should we have anticipated this? Absolutely, she says. This was raw American power. It was. This was raw America. Look, guys, and I'm not going to lie to you. I'm like so jealous and envious of. I'm so jealous and envious of America right now. Honestly, I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to admit it. You know, 1980s America is back. I just hope they do some good movies. I hope they start doing good movies again. This was raw American power, says former MI6 boss, but it wouldn't fly in the United Kingdom. No, it wouldn't. We would never be able to do that with Keir Starmer. Oh. Special Forces, can you go in and take this guy, but make sure you don't infringe on his human rights, or we'll be sending a legal team to record it behind you, because if you break any pots or vases, we're going to send you to prison. But do a good job, please. That's literally what we'd get in the UK. As a military operation, the US's mission in Venezuela yesterday was very effective. That's the view of top MI6 former chief Sir John Sawyer, I think, who spoke a few minutes ago. The reality is that operation has taken many months of planning, he said, speaking to Sunday Morning with Trevor Phillips. And as you said earlier in your program, there's a CIA team on the ground. There's been a CIA team on the ground for several months. They've obviously got sources inside Maduro's security. They've had a massive buildup of U.S. military forces, including U.S. Special Forces. So it was an operation months in the planning. So what happens is with these operations, they will plan for... Okay, so you know where Maduro goes, right? He will go to his place of work, his home, maybe a leisure site, and then he will have routes to and from those places. So what you will do is normally, this is what will have happened. They will have given each one of those locations to one of the team leaders, and they will say, right, mate, John, Andy, and JR, because we like those American names. John, Andy, and JR. Right, lads. You guys plan a strike operation to capture Maduro alive at these locations. So those team leaders will go away. They will get all the information. They will get all the intelligence. And that will be their mission. So if it comes out and it's his place, if it's his home, that they're going to go, and they will have a mobile one as well. So they will say, right, somebody else needs to plan for if they're moving between them, because if you take someone while they're mobile, that's always the best time, because they're in the car. When they get into compounds, there's buildings, there's armed guards, there's security. It's a lot harder to get someone from a compound than it is getting them moving. However, those things don't always work. When they're moving. So, you're trying to track a moving target. It doesn't always work like that. Clearly on this operation, they went for his, I think they went for his house. Anyway, so they'll be planning that operation and they'll be finding all the information out about that. And what will happen is, although these operations are months in the planning, it could literally be lastminute.com. They could say, right, John, get your plan. We're going this afternoon. Like, right, okay, so John will get the plan. He will brief all the guys. And you don't really need much briefing to these guys. So the Delta guys that went on the ground, you don't really need to. They will have done a lot of briefing. They will have done a lot of rehearsals for those missions. But ultimately, this is bread and butter. Going into buildings, clearing out compounds, it is their bread and butter. And listen, anybody who's in the military will absolutely know no plan survives first contact with the enemy. They'll get in there, something will go wrong, somebody's ladder will break, one of the drones will fall on the floor, somebody's not put the right batteries in, all sorts of stuff could go happen. And you have to improvise, adapt, and overcome on the ground. So no plan really stands first contact with the enemy. But what they will have done is they will have done lots of rehearsals. They will have had maybe back in the United States, they will have had they will have found somewhere that looks like Maduro's house, and they may have even had engineers come out and build Maduro's house with the compound and the compound wall, and they will have done rehearsals day and night so that, they don't, when you're doing these rehearsals, you don't do these rehearsals until you get it right. You do it so you don't get it wrong. Anyway, right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this. I'm going to start to close this down now. Wild times. We are literally in wild times right now. Right, is everybody behaving? Yeah, radios don't work. All sorts of wild stuff doesn't happen. Always look on the Trump side of life. You seen Starmer on the punch bag? Right, I'm going to leave this here. Yeah, I've absolutely seen Starmer on the punch bag, and he looks ferocious. He looks like he looks like Alexander Usyk. I think Starmer on the punch bag's being trained by Alexander Usyk. I love Alexander Usyk. Right, listen, guys, I am going to close this down now. If there's any more breaking news about this situation, I will. Joshua Harrison is saying, Sean, get my comment. Hang on, let me find it. Where is this? I can't find it. Oh, hang on. There. There's been an arson attack on power cables in Berlin. Okay, I didn't see this. What we've said is these are the things. This is asymmetric warfare. This is sabotage. This is all those things that we said would happen. Remember, let's just pretend that the Russian, let's just pretend, all right? Let's just pretend, and I'm not saying, look, guys, I'm getting this in real time. Let's just pretend that these power cables in Berlin power some sort of military infrastructure, right? Let's just say, totally wild. This is not true, obviously. It may be true. Let's just say these cables, power cables in Berlin, they do some sort of they power some sort of military infrastructure, right? And now these power cables have been burnt, they don't work, that military installation stops working, right? If you are a bad guy and you want to take that military installation out, yes, you can send missiles over and you can attack it. The problem if you send missiles, right, is you know where those missiles are coming from. You're going to get a response. If you pay criminal gangs, and I don't know what you guys think, but do you guys think that migrants, these migrants in hotels could be given money to go and set fire to power cables? I don't know. I'd say they could, but I don't know. I've certainly never asked. So now you see how effective sabotage can be. And Staple Endeavor is sent me a $2 super. Is that Australian dollars? What does that mean? Is that US dollars? I don't know what that is. I think that's US. Is that I think that's Australian dollars. And he's saying, you make me giggle. Well, thank you. I hope you're not in the giggling stage where you're not going to the toilet. He's acting a bit weak, hitting the bag, making the British look pathetic. It's a psyop. Yeah, I think we're talking here about Starmer hitting that punch bag. It was embarrassing. Are we? Oh, we're going right. Oh God. Right. I'm not going to block you, mate. I'm not going to block this guy. But I am just. Oh, hang on. Will the Iranian regime wake their sleeper cells up? Right. Okay. I will come on to that, but let me just block. Right. Here we are. Right. What's his name? Brad Davis. I'm not going to block you, mate. I'm not going to block you. I'm just gonna put you in timeout. All right. You're not blocked. You're just in timeout. Andrew Rubin, this is going to be the last question, guys. All right, I will be back on later on today, at like 8 o'clock. Will the Iranian regime wake up their sleeper cells across Europe before it falls, Sean? I would say even if the Iranian regime does fall, they can still open up their sleeper cell, wake up their sleeper cells. What we know from the article that was released in, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Channel 4. I can't remember. I shared the article. What we know, there was this guy, and he was embedded. He was embedded in the UK. He was undercover. He was undercover in Britain's terror network. And what he was saying is that there are hundreds of sleeper cells in the United Kingdom, and they have heavy links to Iran. That's what he was saying. So the, sleeper cells are a real, a real threat. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to have to go. I do apologize that I've not been able to get everybody's comments, everybody's questions, everybody's chat. I will be back on later on today. I'll be back on at 8. If anything's breaking, I'll be back on through the day. I bid you a good morning. Keep warm. Get your heating on. If you guys have got a log burner like me, everybody comes into my house and people are like, oh, Sean, you've got a log burner. The house was really nice and warm. Do you have any idea how much effort I have to put into that log burner? Getting the wood, chopping the wood, processing it, getting it in there. It's a faff, guys, all right? But we don't have an electricity bill, a gas bill. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will bid you a good morning. I think. Are we going?